I'm Kinsey, and this is Key Lime Academy. Hey there, party people. So, welcome to our first YouTube video. Super pumped to be here. Really excited to tell you guys a little bit about me. There is a tailor shortage in the world, and we need you. So, what are we going to do today? So, today is going to be a rough intro video. This is my first YouTube, so give me some grace. Take it easy on me. What we're going to be doing is I ask you guys to leave comments on our TikTok and Instagram for questions that you wanted to know, whether that was just education on how to sew or something specific like that. But I also asked you guys to leave some raunchy questions, some questions that are just like you're burning to know. We're going to be answering those questions today, and we're going to be starting off with TikTok. First question: what is a sewing step you wish you could skip? Mine is either ironing or pinning. So, one thing I do hate is pinning. There is so much pinning. But another one of the steps I wish I could skip has to be cutting your excess threads. I am really guilty of waiting till the very end when the garment is finished, and then I have like a bajillion, gazillion threads to trim. So that's gonna do it for me. Next question: did you know that you were the coolest person I know? I'm pretty cool. Am I the coolest person that this person knows? I don't know. But I do like to say I'm pretty cool. Next question: am I insane for using a zigzag stitch when I don't have a serger? Absolutely not. This is exactly what you were supposed to do when you don't have a serger. You are absolutely supposed to zigzag, and I would, in fact, yell at you if you didn't. And yeah, it's not as long lasting as a serger, but it is going to make whatever you're producing just a little bit better. Have you ever had someone almost pass out or throw up while getting pinned? So, yes. I do a lot of bridal tailoring, and whenever you're pinning a bride, sometimes those fittings can take like up to 30 minutes. And you're pretty much standing the whole time either in heels or not in heels, and your knees are typically locked. I had a client almost pass out once, and they actually, in that same scenario, had to reveal to me that they were pregnant. So, yeah, it happens to people who aren't expecting, and it happens to people that are. So, don't forget when you're at your tailor, if you're doing an extended fitting, make sure you're bending your knees. Next question: how do I take my measurements? This is a really, really, really great question, and I'm glad that it was asked. I would love to make a really short, like 5 to 8 minute video on how to properly take your measurements, because this comes in really handy not only for sewing, but also when you're just purchasing clothes online, because you can use your measurements to reference size charts. This also comes in handy whenever you're trying to alter a pattern to fit you. So if you would like a quick video on how to take your measurements, you know what I'm about to say, comment below. I'd love a sewing video on how to sew crocheted and knitted afghans to remake into clothing or accessories. This is a really cool idea. I'm really big into preserving afghans. You can see this blanket that I'm currently sitting on. My great grandma crocheted this blanket. That being said, I would love to make a video explaining how to change not only afghans but also quilts into functional garments, but doing that in a way that preserves the original artwork, because that's something I am very passionate about, that a lot of quilt and afghan upcyclers don't always take into consideration, and that just grinds my gears. How to read a pattern. This is hard. Sometimes reading a pattern, especially sewing patterns, and especially commercially produced sewing patterns, can feel like you're reading a different language. You're not alone. This is a universal experience. And if I can make that easier for you guys, I would love to. So let me know. Last question is how to pattern a shirt from scratch. We might need to make a whole video on that one. That is a very complicated question. Um, and something you're probably not going to get super far into until you're pretty deep into your sewing journey. We don't really need to know how to pattern a shirt yet. I can teach you how to follow a pattern for a shirt, but we got to get some content out there before we can dive into that.
3 days later.
All right, here we go, Insta. 42 comments. Wow, I feel famous. Okay, first question. What is the weirdest request you've ever received? I have a client that is wanting to make a harness for their Frenchie out of alligator skin. What's the most embarrassing thing someone has done during a fitting? I think this wasn't necessarily an embarrassing experience for me, but for the client themselves. I did have a client come in for a bridal fitting once, and the client forgot that they were commando that day, which, like, I was fine with, but I can see how that could be a bit intimidating, a bit embarrassing for a bridal fitting where I'm getting up under your skirt, we're getting down and dirty. I was fine, but that definitely was a moment of like, here's a great question. How come I can't repair my cable knit sweater with Gorilla Glue? Theoretically, you could. I mean, you could. Should you? I was raised by a man. My father, his answer for anything broken, anything that needed a little bit of help, was Gorilla Glue and duct tape and zip ties. Gorilla Glue, duct tape, and zip ties are his holy trinity. So I'm like, you could, but you shouldn't. Please don't. Disclaimer, please don't try that at home. This is a really great question, and I feel like gives some insight into who I am as a business owner. Have you ever accepted a job and then had to say never mind once you got into it? So, a little bit about me and my personality. I'm really bad at saying no, like really bad. So, for example, last summer took on a project for a really great local business, and they wanted about 200 coin purses created out of a vinyl tarp like fabric. And I was like, yeah, like obviously I can do it for sure. Yeah. And I got started. Holy, holy, that was rough with a capital R. Um, that project took me way entirely too long to get through because not only is vinyl incredibly challenging to work with in general, but when you add a quantity that large on top of the roughness of the fabric already, that was really hard. And that's the only project I've ever like taken on that I was like, hey, I don't know about this. But did I do it? Yeah, because I'm a woman of my word. This one's great. So this one says, how can I sew a top so that it looks like I have boobs? Boobs are fun. Whether you have them, you don't have them, boobs are fun. One thing that I love to reiterate to clients that may not have as busty of a chest as some of my others, you really have to use bust cups. So there are tons of different kinds of bust cups. You can use a push-up bust cup. You can use a typical bust cup, whether it's a dress, a shirt, whatever, just to give yourself a little bit more. That's really nice. And also taking advantage of structural design elements like darts or princess seams. Those are going to give you the shape of a boob, even if you don't have one. This client commented, I can't do a straight line, lol. Where do I look to make sure that I go straight? This is actually a really good question. Every machine is going to have little dashed lines on the metal plate that is on the left and right side of the presser foot, and all of those are going to be different measurements that you want to follow with the edge of your fabric. These can sometimes be a little bit tricky to see, so one thing I always like to recommend to my students is to use a strip of painter's tape along one of those lines so you have a solid line to stare and watch as you're stitching. It's a big misconception that when you're sewing, you need to stare at the needle, but you actually need to look at that seam guide, and that's what's going to help you go nice and straight. Worst clothing brand you've had to alter? Anything from Amazon, anything from Shein. No, I'm not going to further explain that. If you want an explanation, you're probably part of the problem. Am I supposed to clean my sewing machine regularly or just when something is wrong? So you have to think of a sewing machine as a car. Do you have to get your oil changed? Should you maintenance your tires? Should you rotate your tires? Should you change your air filter? Probably. You probably should. If you want your car to last, you probably should do that. Machines need their oil changed. Machines need to be buttered up. machines need to be maintenance. About once a year, your machine probably needs a full service. Has anyone ever farted during a fitting? So, not in front of me, but I have had clients use my restroom. And we won't get too far into that because we're human and things happen, and as someone with a gluten allergy, I understand urgency is a thing. So, I respect that they didn't do it in front of me, but I can hear what you do in the bathroom. I can hear it. Worst design / construction of a piece that you've seen that needed to be fixed. This actually happened about 2 weeks ago. I had a client come in with a jumpsuit, and the zipper was so poorly inserted into that garment that they had a physical outward hump tail situation coming out from the zipper. That was pretty freaking bad. That was a pretty bad design feature because I know even on a mannequin that looked bad, and they did it anyways. Have you ever seen anything during a fitting or an appointment that made you simply stop in your tracks? Unhinged edition, of course. My studio is in a downtown of a city, and I have often had some really crazy things happen in front of my studio. But specifically, I was once doing a fitting and I started hearing some really funky sounds, and I look out the front window and we both see this guy on roller skates skating on the safety rails in front of the building. So that was like a very crazy random thing. And I also have a metal roof, and squirrels love to on the ceiling. So that happens a lot sometimes, and clients will be like, this client says, going unhinged, but a real question. I have no butt. How can I alter a pant pattern so it looks like I don't have a loaded diaper because of how much extra fabric is there? This is a fabulous question, but before we dive into that, the term loaded diaper always makes me think of Roderick from Diary of a Wimpy Kid, who was like my first villain origin story. I loved Roderick. Anyways, so what I always like to explain to clients is that absolutely none of us are shaped the same. I'm not shaped the same as you. You're not shaped the same as Joe below. None of us are the exact same. Maybe for an identical twin, but even in that case, is the diameter of your forearm going to be the same as theirs? Maybe not. So patterns are made from a collective average size. So a size small, it's going to be a large pool of measurements for individuals with a size small. So yeah, when you purchase a pattern, it's not going to be exact to your measurements. So if you produce the garment and find that you got a loaded diaper in the butt, you need to be able to alter your pattern. So if that's something you guys want to learn, it's actually very easy. A lot of those patterns that are commercially produced have altering lines on them already to make it a little bit easier whenever the garment doesn't fit you absolutely correctly. So that is something I really love to talk about. And I always reiterate to my clients is that it's not a you problem, it's the garment's problem. People will come in and be like, oh, why do I look so bad in this? You don't look bad in this, the garment just fits you poorly. So then once we alter it and change it, like you feel so much more confident in who you are. You no longer look like you have a loaded diaper, and just overall you feel better. I feel like that's definitely going to have to be a video series because did you hear how long I yapped about that? Have you ever had clothes come in with stains from things other than food/drinks? You know what I mean, parentheses, poo. So I have never had poo come in, thank goodness. I personally don't even know what I would do in that situation. I have had clothing come in with blood stains from one form or another. I feel like I always have a few clients that will bring in their clothes unwashed, whether it's a coffee stain or they just kind of smell bad. I once had a client take their garment off and change in my fitting room after a workout. So I have experienced some nasty things, but nothing I think would ever compare to the day I had parentheses poo on a garment. Next question is, at what point does vintage clothing become vintage? I'm very glad that this question was asked because I have a really, really, really big passion for sustainability, vintage garments, and just fashion history in general. We have such a rich history when it comes to fashion and what it has meant to us culturally. I love to talk about it. So there's definitely going to be some content on this page that is focused on fashion history. So stay tuned for that. But a short answer, vintage is anything 30 years or older. That is the very brief overall definition of vintage. All right, next question. Is it okay if I don't shave before my fitting? That's none of my business. You can come in with the hairiest legs I've ever seen. I don't care. If your toes look really bad, I don't care. That's none of my business. I probably wouldn't shave to go to the tailor. It don't bother me none. You can come in however you choose to come in. We're gonna be all right. That's a good question though. Some people may really want to know. Getting over the fear of failure is our next question. I'm actually quite glad this question was asked because this is something I, as a business owner, as a tailor, still struggle with every single day. One of the things that has really helped me get over that hurdle is changing my mindset on what I consider failure, even with starting this YouTube channel. For example, if I post this video and I get one like or one view, it may not be what I thought I was going to get, but it's still not a failure. One view, that's still a success. 0 views, that's I'm probably going to count that as a failure. Any experience that you do, even this example, if I fail, I am learning. So is that really even failure? Trust me, I still have days where I feel like the entire day was quite a failure. But some days I'm able to wake up and just like really go into things with a positive attitude and just being really confident and comfortable in who I am as a business owner, the talent that I have to offer, and just like myself in general. So try to shift your mindset, try to get over that hurdle of what is success and what is failure. Because once you do that, you're going to be pleasantly surprised on what that will do for not only your business, but your emotional and mental health as well. Next question. Why do jeans always wear out in the booty first? This is a great question. That is because of this. Alrighty, folks, that was our first YouTube video. I really hope you guys enjoy this. I'm very passionate about what I do, and I really want people to also be passionate about what I do because tailoring is a lost art. I am one of the only tailors that I know under the age of 30 in the state that I am in. And that's something that is like a very big job epidemic right now is tailors. So I want to spread information. I want to teach you guys how to do these basic life skills. I want to educate you guys on fashion history because something I love so much and I want you guys to know about. I'm just super excited. So I hope you guys are excited too. I think this is going to be a fun journey and I'm really excited to educate. Educate. Today's video is sponsored by no one. So if you want to sponsor me, that'd be cool. So if you just like, comment, subscribe, the Holy Trinity, that'd be really cool too. Anyways, I hope you guys have a great week and I'll see you soon.